If the art of not giving a shit was a wrestling character, CM Punk is probably what you would see. He's become one of the most polarizing figures in the entire wrestling business. Some people love him, some people hate him, but you can't deny the career that he's had up until this point. Everywhere he's been a top star. Semantics, politics aside, he's done it. The dude simply wore his heart on his sleeve for his entire wrestling career. But how did CM Punk become one of the hottest things in pro wrestling? This is the rise of the best in the world, CM Punk. Before touring the world, CM Punk started his career as a backyard wrestler, performing alongside his buddies and his brother in the LWF, or Lunatic Wrestling Federation, pretty close to his hometown of Chicago. It was during this time where CM Punk got his name because he was in a tag team called the Chick Magnets, where the CM stemmed from. That obviously makes sense. Name and all, CM Punk got a bigger itch for pro wrestling. He didn't want to spend his time wrestling in the backyard, but he wanted to do it on a professional level, so he decided to go get some training at Steel Domain Wrestling, where he was trained by Ace Steel, Danny Dominion, and Kevin Quinn. Basically, here it said that CM Punk genuinely wanted to do this, unlike his friends who just did it for fun. His official pro wrestling debut came at age 20 in 1999 in Minnesota, and it was during this time where he found his home promotion of IWA Mid-South, where he mixed things up with people like Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, and AJ Styles. Wrestling those guys, mixed with Punk's ability to put on classic matches with basically anyone, it made him a very hot commodity in the indie circuit. Punk was on the rise, which led him to different promotions, one of which was TNA. Here he would spend time in Raven's flock before ultimately turning on him and leaving TNA, because while working for TNA, Punk was also with Ring of Honor, which TNA didn't want their wrestlers to work for because of what happened in the Rob Feinstein controversy. Pause it here if you want to read what happened.
The spirit of that, but actually learn our craft, like man, how unstoppable would we be? And that's where the friction happened. The big thing of contention was my brother, he was in charge of all the money. We started running real shows, so then now you're talking about like insurance and security deposits for buildings and renting guardrails, renting chairs. One day it was like he stole all the money. It wasn't like a small chunk of change for a bunch of kids that were just goofing off, running, pirate pro wrestling shows. Like it was a lot of money, and a lot of people to this day are like, "Oh, it's your brother," and I'm like, "Really? You ever steal from your brother? Like that's not what brothers do, man. Brothers help each other, like Toby from H2O, he's my brother. Lars Fredriksson, he's my brother. These are dudes that love and support me, they don't steal from me. I haven't talked to them in like 12 years. It's real life.
I told you so. Seems like I'm out here a lot saying that to you people, right? I told you all that I would beat Jeff Hardy at SummerSlam. And then I said I would make The Undertaker tap out to the Anaconda Vice. I told you so. When it comes to ladders, nobody's better than me. As far as chairs go, well, you just saw the damage I can do when I get my hands on a steel chair.
Punk. Back in 2011, Punk was ready to explode, having just cut the promo of a lifetime. In fact, many lapsed fans who back in 2011, Punk was ready to explode, having just cut the promo of a lifetime, who have since returned to wrestling credit this for being the event that got them watching again. Even current superstars like Adam Cole and Rhea Ripley have called him a major influence. So what was so special about him? Well, Punk had a lofty goal. He wanted to change the culture of wrestling itself. So did he manage to achieve this, or did it all end up being for nothing? Well, join us today as we answer this question by taking a deep dive into his entire career journey as well as the aftermath in Best in the World, the CM Punk story. CM Punk was born Philip Jack Brooks on October 26, 1978 in Chicago, Illinois. Brooks watched his father struggle with alcoholism during his childhood, and this would lead to a lifelong abstinence from drink or drugs, something which in many ways would define him for the rest of his life. He had been a wrestling fan as a child, but his first opportunity to fight for himself came in the backyard promotion Lunatic Wrestling Federation, where he and his brother Mike performed in the mid to late 90s. This was where he developed the ring name CM Punk after being put into a tag team with fellow backyard wrestler CM Venom. For years later, it would be subject to fan speculation about what the CM in Punk's name stood for. Some of the suggestions included Cookie Monster, Chicago Made, and Charles Montgomery, a reference to Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. Punk himself seemed happy to play up to the speculation, often giving a different answer whenever he was asked. Years later, however, it would be revealed during a court case that it in fact stood for Chick Magnet, making us wish we never found out at all. Sometimes the mystery is better left as just that. Looking for more out of wrestling, the young upstart eventually left the Lunatic Wrestling Federation and signed up to the Steel Dominion Wrestling School in Chicago. It was there that he met Scott Colton, more familiar to wrestling fans as Colt Cabana. The two quickly became best friends and spent most of their early careers working alongside one another as both opponents and tag team partners. Punk's home promotion during these early years was IWA Mid-South, where, as well as having memorable feuds with Cabana, he also took on the likes of Chris Hero, AJ Styles, and Eddie Guerrero. After becoming a 5-time heavyweight champion for the promotion, he quit in protest of notorious scumbag Ian Rotten's treatment of his friend Hero, showing Punk's willingness to stick to his morals no matter what, even at the cost of a job. After this, he joined Ring of Honor, where he brought his straight-edge lifestyle to the forefront of his wrestling character by feuding with Raven, berating him for his drug and alcohol issues over the years throughout the program. The whole thing climaxed in a steel cage match in November 2003. From there, he rocketed up the ranks of the company, winning the tag team titles twice with Colt Cabana. He also spent a brief period with TNA, though in characteristic fashion, this came to an end when Punk quit the company in protest over them trying to stop the wrestlers from working with other promotions on the side. Back in Ring of Honor, though, he and Samoa Joe would put on 3 classic bouts in short succession, gaining the attention of tape-trading wrestling fans everywhere and putting them on the map for the first time. The first 2 bouts ended in 60-minute time limit draws, with the second one becoming Ring of Honor's highest-selling DVD release of the time. This match also received 5 stars in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter, the first to do so in North America in 7 years. The third and final match in the series would end with Joe getting the win, though both men's stock has risen significantly as a result. Inevitably, this caught the attention of WWE, who offered Punk a tryout match on May 9, 2005. He impressed the right people and worked out a deal to start with the company soon afterwards, though still made sure he could work his previously booked indie dates before coming over. To the surprise of fans who were already aware he had signed the big-time contract, Punk would then go on to beat Austin Aries and win the Ring of Honor World title. This began the summer of Punk, where the new champ mocked both the ROH locker room and fans as he threatened to quit the company and take the belt with him to WWE. He even went as far as to sign his contract on the ROH title in a show of disrespect to the promotion that had made him an indie darling. This was the hottest story the company had seen at the time and brought a lot of eyeballs to them, as some felt Punk might actually appear on WWE TV with the belt. Of course, he eventually lost it to James Gibson. However, the Summer of Punk still stands as one of the most engrossing storylines in the history of independent wrestling. There have been attempts to recreate it since, with the likes of AJ Styles and TNA, as we covered in our recent video on him, and Punk once again in WWE, though none of them were able to capture the same lightning in a bottle a second time.
I am the man that retired Jeff Hardy, and I'm the first and only straight-edge world heavyweight champion. I am the choice of a new generation. I am a champion that everybody can finally be proud of. And if you're not straight edge like me, well, that just means I'm better than you. Do you know what your chances are of beating me? 0. And the best part of it is, There's not a thing any of you can do about it. What you need is a leader. You need a strong leader who's going to stand up in the face of adversity and just say no. You need a strong leader that's going to carry the banner of the World Heavyweight Championship with honor, with pride, respect, dignity, integrity, and class. What you people need is a straight-edge World Heavyweight Champion. You need CM Punk.
I wanted to go get trained, and I started looking up schools, and I found Steel Domain, run by Danny Dominion and Ace Steel, and off and on a guy named Kevin Quinn.
We had drills, we had training, we had a lot of, running the ropes and leapfrogs and drop downs and hip tosses and just, what you would call the basics, so to speak.
Maybe 2 months after I started training, I met Colt Cabana.
And I remember, you'd see the different guys coming in and out of the gym. Out comes this guy who looked like a total slob. Colored hair, some tattoos, just dirty jeans, just looked such like a dirty kid.
Where we bonded was love of pro wrestling.
At one point, Punk and Cabana had the keys to the place, and they would come in on their off days and maybe just get in there on a Sunday.
We both were on the same page. This is what we wanted to do, and we were from two completely different worlds.
He was unathletic. He had lead in his ass. To do a leapfrog over a guy, it wasn't easy for him. And then on the other end, you got a guy like Cabana was, he played college football, he was a natural athlete, so anything I showed Cabana running the ropes or whatever, he could pick up on that. Well, on the opposite end, the thing with Punk that was a strong point was connecting with the crowd.
The main story was me and Cabana found each other and instantly became best friends. Sleeping on floors, and you just find all these other like-minded people all over the country that are doing the same thing. And you just network. Wound up meeting all these people, and I'm working 2 or 3 jobs to support my wrestling habit, but wrestling was like the priority. Like, I can't tell you of all the things that I neglected or missed or just completely ruined. I wasn't into burning bridges. I would blow the bridges up while I was still on them.
He sacrificed everything, he knew that's what he wanted and he went for it. It's why he is a much better friend than a boyfriend because he's so focused and he's so dedicated that wrestling always came first. It didn't matter if it was my birthday or if it was his birthday.
If you know him, you know better than to doubt him, and he's going to take any avenue he needs to take to be successful.
We would work anywhere we could. That was the big piece of advice I got. Work as often as you can.
Yeah! That's why we had to take to the road and go to Louisville and Detroit, Michigan, and every weekend drive to all these places. It was the only way to get yourself pressed, was to go out and do that. It wasn't coming to us, that's for sure.
CM Punk versus Colt Cabana became the match. We got booked based solely on that. People called us up and were like, we need that match.
I think you heard so much buzz about Punk versus Cabana, you wanted to see it for yourself, and it was never the same. They always threw in different elements.
And together, we would go to Minnesota, to Kentucky, to Pittsburgh, to Dayton, to Cleveland, to Detroit, Milwaukee, everywhere and anywhere anyone would have us, we would wrestle there. We were wrestling for IWA Mid-South all the time, but that was where we had our first home. That's where you establish yourself, that's where you grow, and we really grew as wrestlers.
They kind of were a blood and guts promotion. They hit each other with frying pans and light tubes and thumbtacks and all that stuff. And myself and Cabana and Suicide Kid, and I met Chris Hero, we were the Wrestlers.
Punk is a technician in there. A lot of people hear that name, CM Punk, and they have a hard time imagining a scientifically gifted wrestler. But the reality is, that's just what CM Punk is. Punk sort of wrestled circles around him right there, folks. Let's face it.
We were doing all the emulating of Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko we could.
IWA! What? Give it up for yourselves, because there's no place I wrestle that gives me elevation
I was always just a wrestler. To me, it was always, I had to create this persona. It never occurred to me that I was a hell of a character myself, you know? So my girlfriend at the time, Natalie, was also straight edge. You should be a bad guy.
We were talking about it, and I'm like, you're like everything wrestling fans hate. The typical wrestling fan was a beer in one hand, and so to be this like snotty, like, you know, like smart mouth punk rocker with like a stupid haircut and ripped up clothes, and then to be like, I'm better than you because I don't drink. And at the time there was like lots of hardcore shirts that had this kind of language on it. Like straight edge means I'm better than you was like definitely something that was like a sentiment kind of in the scene. So yeah, I'm like, you're like the ultimate bad guy. Like they would hate everything about you. Like you look weird and you don't drink.
She came up with the whole idea. She's like, you should X your hands.
Back when like punk bands used to play in bars a lot, that was mostly what the venues were. So when there were all ages shows, they would put X's on anybody who was underage, so they would know not to serve them. So like when the whole straight edge movement kind of came about, and there were like actual like straight edge bands and people started kind of like adopting it as a lifestyle, they kept the X as like a sign of solidarity.
And I was just like, you're a genius.
My name is CM Punk, and I am straight edge. That means I am drug-free, I'm alcohol-free, and I'm better than each and every single one of you here today.
I just loathed it. You could never have to worry about the crowd being into the match because he had such a polarizing personality. Either you loved him or you hated him.
I enjoyed wrestling Chris Hero. Chris Hero liked wrestling me, and it was just one of those things. We had a chemistry.
This quite possibly could be the most significant feud in IWA history.
We didn't really have to communicate verbally at all. It was just, I knew what he did, he knew what I did, and it just worked.
Last night in the barn, and Hero and I were doing a tables, ladders, and chairs match.
They know each other like the back of their hands.
And my idea was, I literally wanted to bring the whole barn down.
The bear, he just speared him through the wall. I know this is our last night in the building, guys, but I didn't know we were going to tear the thing down.
I came up with the dueling rafters because I was literally trying to rip the barn down because I thought, what a way to go out.
It was nuts. The people were so into it. The stuff that they did in that match was magic for that crowd that was there.
Just as it was going on, we were kind of hitting everything.
Right on the money. I mean, they clicked.
They're personifying what wrestling is all about right here, what kind of heart it takes. They are tearing each other to shreds over that title.
At the time, it was the first time I experienced what I call magic. In the ring, I knew that what we were doing was good based on the fact that I could feel how captivated everybody who was watching was. There was this tangible energy in the air. It's magic. I had magic with Chris Hero that night, definitely.
Everything aligned properly that night for us, and because of that match, that tape had gotten sent out everywhere and people bought the tape, etc. That kind of launched us as far as, CM Punk and Chris Hero, who are these guys? And it was very instrumental in us getting opportunities. And then it was like Punk and Hero in Pittsburgh, Punk and Hero in Detroit, Punk and Hero in Philadelphia, whatever. So we kind of like did the loop, and every match would be just a little bit longer, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. We had an hour draw, and then I just thought, like, you know what? How about as an extra attraction to the match, let's have a match 2 out of 3 falls with a 90-minute time limit.
Over an hour and a half of some of the most brutal, hard-hitting wrestling, high-flying, and technical wrestling you've ever seen.
This is the first time I remember hearing on the independents these guys doing hour-long matches and stuff. I was like, whoa.
I became obsessed with old school pro wrestling. And the champion would travel around all different territories. And he would wrestle 60 minutes.
That was a big thing for Punk. He wanted to be the Iron Man. That was one of his unnamed nicknames, was the Iron Man of professional wrestling.
I thought I was good, I really thought I was good. And then I got in the ring with Eddie Guerrero, and I was like, holy crap, am I bad? I mean, that was a big step up in competition, and that was a big test. But it gave me that attainable goal.
You're talking about confidence level, setting new heights, climbing the ladder. Eddie helped him get to that.
Well, oxygen deprivation is one way. I don't know. How are you going to make them gasp? So I get a phone call, and it's from Vince, and we didn't have much interaction going into SummerSlam. You know, it was still kind of sore from that thing that I don't want to talk about on the plane. And, you know, hey, pal, I want to talk to you about, how do you envision, well, what are you going to be doing? You know, well, you're off until February. I don't know if it's, it might be March sometimes. What are we doing next Monday? Watching the show from Chicago on television. And he says, well, that's interesting. I'd like you to have an up-close seat. I have this idea about you working with somebody else, not just Brock Lesnar on my show. And, you know, Vince, I don't think we ought to go there. I'm real good with Brock, real happy with our deal. I want to, you know, do that thing going into wrestling. I'm going to bring my kids to WrestleMania. Oh, goddamn. I'd like to see your kids at WrestleMania, you know? Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'd like to see your kids at WrestleMania, too.
I'm like a fan of indie wrestling. I've watched all kinds of wrestling, Japanese wrestling, lucha, American wrestling, and he was making waves.
Each and every single one of you, including everybody standing on the sacred or in this ring, or anybody who ever crossed that threshold of that door and gave their blood, their sweat, their tears, put their life on the line. We put each other's life in our hands each and every single time we are in this ring. And whether you like me or you hate me or you love me, we do it for each other.
After this, the newly signed WWE superstar reported to Ohio Valley Wrestling, the company's developmental promotion at the time. Here, he found quick success, becoming the television champion on November 9, 2005, and later the world champion on May 3, 2006. Was that there was just enough reality injected into the situation that at times you genuinely couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. At Money in the Bank, in front of a hometown crowd, CM Punk came out to an electric crowd reaction. And as he sat in the ring and soaked in the adoration, Cena came out to absolutely nuclear heat. The commentary team informed us that Punk had still not signed a new contract, and as far as the audience knew, he really hadn't. No one had any idea what was going to happen. When Punk pinned Cena to win the WWE title after 34 minutes, the roof blew off the place. McMahon immediately got a headset at ringside and ordered Alberto Del Rio to come out and cash in his Money in the Bank contract before Punk could leave, but it was no good. He laid Del Rio out and then left through the crowd, blowing Vince a kiss goodbye on the way. It was masterful. This whole story, from pipe bomb to title win, is arguably the best thing WWE have done over the last 20 years, and the match itself received 5 stars in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. The first WWE match to do so since 1997, and the second time Punk would get that accolade. The reality was that he had signed a new contract, though negotiations were still ongoing as the show went on the air that night. After the match, people were buzzing, and many lapsed fans found themselves interested again for the first time in years. There was even talk that this story could trigger a new boom period. Punk was white hot and on the verge of capturing the cultural zeitgeist the same way Steve Austin had over a decade before. People wondered where he would go with the belt, hoping for him to play out the story for months, showing up at indie shows and proclaiming himself to be the real WWE champion. It should also be noted that this was the period when John Cena almost turned heel to build up to his upcoming WrestleMania match with The Rock, even going as far as to get new gear made before the idea was nixed. Just think, there's an alternative universe out there where Cena had a Hulk Hogan-level heel turn and CM Punk became the new Steve Austin tier babyface, returning to the company to reclaim his spot after months of making random appearances elsewhere. and skyrocketing the company back to levels of popularity it had been basking in during the late 90s. Unfortunately, this isn't what happened. Punk came back later, left the company too when her contract expired, feeling it was too awkward to remain there with everything that was going on. CM Punk moved on from wrestling after this, going on to fulfill a dream of his by competing in the UFC, competing in 2 separate bouts with the company. Once in 2016 where he was defeated by Mickey Gall, and then again in 2018 in another losing effort against Mike Jackson before retiring from the sport of MMA. He would also write some comic books for Marvel at this time and would take up some acting parts, recently having his first starring role in the indie horror film The Girl on the Third Floor. However, despite insisting that he never would, he eventually did return to WWE, sort of, by way of Fox Sports, signing a contract with them as an analyst on the network's talk show WWE Backstage. This led many fans to turn on Punk and label him a hypocrite. Even to this day, there's perhaps no one in wrestling more divisive, even all these years after he left. To some, he's a hero, a rebel who tried to rebuild the system for the better. To others, he's a villain, a man who sold out his principles and screwed over friends like Colt Cabana with his bitter attitude. However you feel about him, the truth is that he may not have been able to beat the system, but he was able to change things for the better just a little bit. When he walked out on the company, it forced them to rethink that year's WrestleMania plans. This eventually led to Daniel Bryan's now iconic title win. Had Punk not walked, the reality is that this probably would have never happened. His post-exit podcast also highlighted the independent contractor status WWE wrestlers have, not entitling them to healthcare. He's also been widely regarded.
The main event of WrestleMania, I was mad that I was wrestling Triple H. There's an element of truth in all of those things, but I can't say there was one big thing that led to my decision. And actually, the big thing that led to my decision was my health.
So, I mean, little things like those had been eking at you your whole, like little decisions of, oh, that sucks, oh, this sucks. I mean, that's your whole career. Like
the whole thing's a fight. The whole thing's a fight. Well, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm in Boston. I'm talking to Vince about re-signing. He says, "Oh, we really need you. I'll give you this. I'll give you that." I say, "I want this." He says, "Fine, you can have that." I'd already been approached because, I mean, you got to understand. After I did that promo in Vegas, everyone calls it the pipe bomb, and I despise that word now, because everyone just refers to promos as pipe bombs now. Right. It's very weird. And maybe hell, I should just embrace that and own that too. But I don't know. It feels like douchey. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna drop a pipe bomb. I don't know.
I get it.
I'm talking to Vince, and I tell him that since that promo, we've gotten more mainstream attention. You know what I mean? Like all this stuff. Everyone wanted to interview me, whether it was like GQ magazine, on the cover of USA Today, and like all this weird shit.
Jim Rome.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. You're going to remember more than I do because my life's a blur. And I had legitimate companies approaching me about wanting to just give me money to sponsor me, because obviously UFC's all the rage and guys wear fight shorts and they have shit all over their shorts and they get paid a ridiculous amount of money to promote these companies. So I had a pretty big money deal on the table, and I went to Vince and I was like, yeah, so okay, this is gonna be a new CM Punk, and when I do things new, I like to kind of, new hairstyle, new look.
No, really?
Yeah, right. New whatever. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Maybe I'll switch to fight shorts, because then I can have sponsors and these guys are already in place. And I told them my idea, said I wanted to do this sponsorship thing, and I felt like I deserved it. I got all these new eyes on the product, and people were fucking going banana about it. And he says, nope, you can't do that. Sponsors for Raw would get mad. The other wrestlers would get mad. This, that. We had a conversation. It wasn't my hill to die on, so I let it go. A year later, Brock Lesnar comes back, and the motherfucker has sponsors.
Jerky links.
And that's, and that's good, because Brock got that.
Well, I mean, good on him. So
good for him.
Where are you? I guess where does that put you mentally? Like, you couldn't win that fight, yet he could win that fight?
Well, he had pre-existing sponsors. I know that.
Did you have any idea that he was going to leave, that he was going to disappear, quit the company? Did he tell you about it? Did he reference it at all? Or did you know just from knowing Punk?
I think on the day that it happened, it was very spontaneous. I think it was a year in the building, and any day in that year, had he decided to walk, would not have surprised me. He was unhappy. He had enough. He couldn't take it anymore, and it wasn't a slow build. It was, a year before he walked, these were daily conversations of, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to take this. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I don't know how much longer I can take this. I don't know how much longer it's going to be till I just decide to go home. So I'm surprised it lasted that long.
You're surprised he was able to last that long before he left?
I was surprised based on how volatile and how intense his desire was to walk a year prior. And then not that it's not like it subsided. I mean, every day with him was an exercise in him finding the balance to simply continue on and find the passion that he needed to do it. And I think what happened was he walked in the day after the Royal Rumble and he couldn't find that passion. He couldn't convince himself or persuade himself, okay, whether I'm happy or not, this is about the performance, it's about my legacy, it's about I take pride in what I do, and whether I'm happy or unhappy, when I go out there, I want to be the best CM Punk that I possibly can be.
History changed it, but that was the premise. We got to SummerSlam, we did SummerSlam, tapped out Triple H, broke his arm, said goodbye the next night in Los Angeles on television, and and that's it. Brock and I were off until February. Vince had the idea the next Monday in Chicago, key point of this whole story, in Chicago, of the season premiere of Monday Night Raw, which will feature something in which CM Punk now fully goes heel. How do you turn CM Punk heel in Chicago? Make it even more difficult? I'm going to turn him heel on John Cena. Because Night of Champions is in Boston, which is John Cena's hometown, where they are sure to boo John Cena and CM Punk. So Vince comes up with the idea, if I can't make them boo him, I can at least make them gasp. We're gonna go for gasping.
He was gonna be good.
You cannot stop my legacy. You don't have the fire inside that I have.
He's the type that if he's not good at something, or even if he's just okay at it, that's not good enough. He wants to be the best in the world. And he wanted to know everything there is to do in the WWE as well as the wrestling business in general.
Every week, I gave all the talent in OVW the opportunity to come by, sit down, and talk about the show with me. First guy in the door every single week, CM Punk. Last guy out the door every single Tuesday night, CM Punk.
The chance I got to work with Paul Heyman was amazing. And since I figured at that time, and I was told at that time, that I was never to be called up to television, I was going to make my time in OVW worth it. I would help write television with Paul every Tuesday night when he flew in. I would stay late Wednesday night and learn how to edit.
If you watched wrestling for the past 10 to 15 years and you love it and it's like within your blood, then you probably have some kind of feelings about that guy. I know I do. You know, just by doing one of these things, he made my job a lot harder, 5-10 years ago. I don't like the guy. I mean, I don't know many people that do.
I need you guys to understand this and hear this. And I need you to open up your ears and hear this. Nobody wants you here. They never wanted you here. That whole locker room's afraid to say it. did the other day, or I'll smack you right off your face.
You talk a big game about workers' rights, yeah? Well, you've shown the exact opposite since you've gotten here. I love this place. I care about this place. This is my home. And this Sunday at Double or Nothing, I will not be defending this championship against you. No, for the first time in my life, I will be defending.
And the truth is, even though you people hate me oh so much, you all know deep down, I deserve to be the next AEW World Champion. Because nobody in that locker room is nearly as good as me. Nobody in that locker room is on my level.
Harwood in the corner, rising knee strike from CM Punk.
Who here fancies themselves as a journalist? If you fancy yourself a journalist, even if it's for the silly world of professional wrestling, and you have journalistic integrity, people who report things, mostly that are bullshit, and slanderous lies against myself, if you are friends with somebody, he blew my spot, but you're not friends with him, I apologize. It's okay, but you should probably disclose who you're friends with. I'm not proud of you. I haven't had anything to do with Scott Colton in almost a decade. Probably wanted nothing to do with him even longer than that. It's fucking unfortunate that I have to come up here and speak on this when I'm on my time and this is a fucking business. Why I'm a grown-ass adult man and I decide not to be friends with somebody is nobody else's fucking business. But my friends, if I fall backwards, will catch me. Scott Colton, I felt, never would have. My problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that did not want to see me at the top. Okay? You call it jealousy, you call it envy, whatever the fuck it is. My relationship with Scott Colton ended long before I paid all of his bills. I have every receipt. I have every invoice. I have every email. I have the email where he says, and I quote, "I agree to go our separate ways. I will get my own lawyer and you do not have to pay anymore." That's an email that I have. The only reason the public did not see is because when I finally had to countersue him through discovery, we discovered he shared a bank account with his mother. That's a fact. And as soon as we discovered that fact and we subpoenaed old Marcia, he sent the email, "Oh, can we please drop all this?" Now, it's 2022. I haven't been friends with this guy since at least 2014, late 2013. And the fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't fucking manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put into a media that I got somebody fired when I have fuck all to do with him, want nothing to do with him, do not care where he works, where he doesn't work, where he eats, where he sleeps. And the fact that I have to get up here and do this in 2022 is fucking embarrassing. And if y'all are at fault, fuck you. If you're not, I apologize. But what did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed fucking dumb fuck like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television and fucking go into business for himself?
You talk a big game about workers' rights, yeah? Well, you've shown the exact opposite since you've gotten here.
Hello there. If you are a binary trader or a newcomer in trading and you experience constant...
Thank you. That was unnecessary.
It's great to be here tonight where it all began for AEW. Right here at the MGM Grand, right here in Las Vegas. And it's very fitting that we're here tonight where it all began to make an announcement about the start of a new beginning for AEW. AEW Collision starting June 17th on TNT. Last week we announced some of the cities for our opening tour with events coming up in Toronto, Hamilton, Regina, Calgary, and Newark. But what we haven't announced yet is the location for the very first AEW Collision. The first episode of AEW Collision will take place Saturday, June 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on TNT from the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. I'm looking forward to a great...
I see it is a win, and that title should belong to me.
Wrestling is a love story. Wrestling is larger than life. As a wrestling fan, every single kid dreams about becoming like these larger-than-life superheroes. I sure did back in the day, and I know you did too. And this is something which does not change much inside of us. Even when we're adults, this does not really change. Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Rob Van Dam, Randy Orton, Edge, Rey Mysterio, Triple H, Batista, The Rock, Daniel Bryan, Jeff Hardy, Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, Taker, Kane, Seth Rollins, Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, the comic book superhero come to life John Cena, you name it. Larger than life superheroes, larger than life icons. You see how I didn't mention that one guy in this list of names who was all of these things as all these guys? He was more than just a larger than life superhero. He was more than just a larger than life icon. His name was CM Punk. He was someone who brought the change to the product when the product needed like a fish out of the water gasping for air because the product had gotten stale. He was someone who brought fans back to the product when they just stopped watching it because the product was filled with too many PG candies. He brought the air of the infamous Attitude Era back to this business, and fans saw that this man was here to save us. We finally had this one guy who just blurred reality and professional wrestling so well that you just saw him as your messiah, who was here to save you from everything that was wrong with the product. He was the hottest thing going on in the entire world of professional wrestling, something which is known as the Summer of Punk.
I'm the best in the world. The only thing that's real is me, and the fact that day in and day out for almost 6 years I have proved to everybody in the world that I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even at commentary. Nobody can touch me. Because this isn't Candyland. I'm like nobody you've ever faced before. You can make fun of the color of my t-shirt, and you can talk about pie, and you can sing songs, and you can rhyme, and you can do your tired, lame-ass shtick. I just want you to know that come Royal Rumble, and you have about 3 weeks to realize this, I'm gonna kick your ass, because I'm the best in the world. And Sunday night, at Night of Champions, no disqualification, I want to tell you a little secret. Why it's going to be so satisfying to me to kick your ass. And right now, this isn't CM Punk talking to Triple H. This is Phil Brooks talking to Paul Levesque. What you are is what you hate. You're the 10-time WWE champion. You're the man. Ladies and gentlemen, the champ is here. You, like the Red Sox, like Boston, are no longer the underdog. You're a dynasty. You are what you hate. You have become the New York Yankees. Maybe this company will be better after Vince McMahon's dead, but the fact is, it's going to get taken over by his idiotic daughter and his doofus son-in-law and the rest of his stupid family. I have had friends, very talented friends, work for this company and be unceremoniously fired.
They deserved it.
They deserved it? They deserved it. Why? Because you don't know what makes a superstar in 2011. You don't know what these people want.
Survivor Series 2023. And on the following episode of Raw, he announced he feels like himself again. He's back with his family. CM Punk is home. CM Punk return confirmed. But also, you know, like, didn't you hate WWE and everything it stood for all those 10 years, and you said it nearly killed you, and no matter who's in charge, it'll always be the same toxic corporation. You did, Punk, didn't you? You did say all those things. I'm Ollie Davis, hailing from Parts Unknown, and this is Every Time CM Punk
last shot on WWE. Before we count these down, give that subscribe button and go to sleep for loads more wrestling lists and game shows. And check us out on patreon.com/WrestleTalk, where there's even more. We count these down, give that subscribe.
Guys. All right, Crazy Mike is doing some pretty awesome tattoos. The most humble, and I've interviewed a lot of celebrities. This guy is pretty awesome right here, CM Punk from
I'm a man of great discipline. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. My addiction is wrestling. My obsession is competition. Discipline. My name is CM Punk.
Last night I felt really overwhelmingly disappointed because I didn't get to wrestle Chris Benoit. And today I can't help but feeling really, really guilty. I just can't get that out of my head because Chris Benoit was my hero. And I was privileged enough to be able to work with him and to know him as a person and to call him my friend. And even though I'll never get to wrestle him, he taught me a lot. And I just hope that I can do his memory good by always being the best I can be and always thinking of him over my shoulder being really hard on me and just trying to keep the next generation of wrestlers alive the way Chris Benoit would have wanted it. I hope I never let you down, Chris. I miss you.
I'm the Coco person now.
In today's WTTV News special, we have all the headlines from CM Punk's incredible appearance on this week's episode of Colt Cabana's The Art of Wrestling, where he lifted the lid on the entire story of his walkout from WWE. In major news, CM Punk has finally lifted the lid on the reasons he is no longer with WWE on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast this week. Punk states that the reason he walked out of the company in January was mainly due to health issues stemming from a number of injuries he'd been carrying in the preceding months. He says that he also suffered a concussion during the Royal Rumble match, but continued to work and was told the next day that he had passed the concussion test, which Punk labelled bullshit. Punk said that he also had a number of grievances with WWE management and aired a number of them on the day after the Royal Rumble, including how Triple H had cut off his momentum in 2011.
And I have followed up on that recommendation. I'm sorry to any fans who are upset by this. I'm sorry to anyone who's upset.
let me just say, I understand. If you all try to understand that I was never going to get healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally, staying in the same place that got me sick in the first place. Can I tell you guys a story? It's hot in here. Hang on one second.
on the writing team. He just can't sort of assimilate into this environment for whatever reason. But he has such great abilities to recognize star power, to develop and build stars. Let's give him a try in our developmental system. You know, maybe he can make a difference.
I was working in the WWE office. My boss was John Laurinaitis and Vince McMahon. There was big heat up here, and Paul was pretty much put out to pasture. Paul was out of their hair. Paul is the type of person that I feel will just keep doing this. Am I bothering you yet? Am I bothering you yet? Am I bothering you yet? Oh, I'm not bothering you yet? Okay, will you let me know when I'm bothering you? Oh, okay, I won't touch you anymore.
A lot of people thought the fact that I was being sent to OVW was a demotion or a punishment for me. And to me, it was a great gift. I got to do what I love to do. I got to develop talent.
Paul was received in OVW by the talent with open arms.
When I signed with WWE in 2005, I was set to go down to Ohio Valley Wrestling. They're developmental at the time. And then Paul Heyman got assigned to OVW, and things just, in my mind, seemed all that much brighter. You know, because even if I never made it out of OVW, I would be able to work with Paul Heyman. You know, I'd be able to learn a thing or two.
Paul worked with me quite a bit one-on-one when I was doing some promos. Paul taught me how to have confidence in my promos. And he was imparting important lessons by trying to get us ready for the cutthroat business, the real business where the real money is being made. And the developmental was awesome because we could all begin to cut our teeth. But I think Paul is very confident in his ability to choose talent that will be successful.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be talking about this, but Paul invited me one night to help him write the television show, which I can't imagine anybody who's on the creative team would be thrilled to hear. But he was receptive. He listened. He told me when my ideas sucked. He told me how to make them better. So I learned how to time out a show. I learned how to pace a show. I learned how to write a show, how to book a show. I learned everything from Paul Heyman.
That's what I've heard for 7 years. I heard you. I heard you. The good news is I got the time and I ain't going anywhere. Can I tell you a story? August 13th, 2005 was my last match in Ring of Honor, and I famously came out with tears in my eyes. I knew I was leaving a place that I love, and it was a home, and I knew where I was going. It wasn't going to be easy for a guy like me. August 13th, 2005, I left professional wrestling.
I never saw anybody grasp the understanding of the layout and the formatting of a TV show as fast as Punk picked it up. And he was asking the best questions I'd ever been asked. I was learning from him before I was done teaching.
August 20th, 2021, I'm back. And I'm back for you.
I was the most pissed off guy on the planet. Frustration level was at, a 10, or maybe an 11. I don't think there was anybody in the company that was more pissed off and more justified, but this is my opinion. I could detail so many different things, so many straws that broke the proverbial camel's back. But a big one was Miz being in the main event of WrestleMania. There wasn't a better bad guy in the business than me. And to watch somebody literally just get handed this, and I was standing there looking at everybody like, he likes to say, really? And that was me standing there like, I just didn't get it. And it was a monumental slap in the face to somebody who has as much pride as I do. And I just figured, in my world, the best good guy fights the best bad guy, the best show in the year. And it was just another time I got passed over. To me, there wasn't really any validation for it. It wasn't because he worked harder than me. It wasn't because he looked better than me, or he was a better bad guy. Nobody could tell me any good reason as to why I was once again, taking a back seat